Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salam ala rasulillah, wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. So we have a principle that the scholars derived from various ayahs in the Quran and hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. وَالَّذِي خَلَقَ لَكُم مَا فِي الْأَرْضِ جَمِيعًا. There is a general default principle when it comes to purity as well as permissibility, that the default setting according to the consensus of Muslim scholars, Hanafi, Shafi'i, Hanbali, Maliki, all of them are in agreement. Al-aslu fil ashya al-tahara wal-aslu fil ashya al-hil wal-ibaha. So the basic ruling of all things is that everything on the earth is pure, except which the Quran and the Sunnah have designated as an impure substance. Now, the impure substance designated by Quran and Sunnah is a divinely designated for a wisdom that may or may not be known by human beings. Alif Lam Mim, right? You may not know the wisdom, but when it says that that thing is impure, sami'na wa ata'na, right? Now, customarily, people may incline to see something as impure, okay? And if there's nothing that's saying it is pure, if there's nothing praising its quality in the Quran and Sunnah, then that would become munkar. It would become something that we all know is not good because the general society, the urf, agrees that that is not a pure thing. So scholars would say it's best to follow along as though it was revealed that way. So al-aada muhakkama, right? The customary understanding of the people is a authoritative thing if it doesn't conflict with Islam. You see, if it conflicts, who cares about what people say? If everybody's in agreement that men wear gold and that's a manly thing, we'll say that no, the Prophet said men don't wear gold, period. Doesn't matter what you think. You see what I'm saying? But if, for example, somebody said, well, men here wear silver chain necklaces, in the country you come from, maybe in your mind, and you feel like that's free for females, that's fine. But here, men and women do it, and there is no ayah or hadith that says men cannot wear necklaces. There is a hadith, there's a vague hadith that says that men and women should not imitate each other. But the question is, who defines what a man and a woman is? The society. You see what I'm saying? Now, the same thing is true when it comes to the matter of it being a pure substance or a not pure substance. So the basic ruling is purity and the basic ruling is permissibility. So scholars derived some rulings over time, and they came to some conclusions based upon their deriving rules from the Quran and the Sunnah. So when it comes to alcohol, there is one ayah in the Quran, إِنَّمَا الْخَمْرُ وَالْمَيْسِرُ وَالْأَنصَابُ وَالْأَزْلَامُ رِجِسٌ مِّنْ عَمَلِ الشَّيْطَانِ فَاجْتَنِبُوهُ. It says that alcohol, gambling, idols, and these superstitious divining arrow things that they used to do, all of those are from the filthy work of the devil. Stay away from them, right? So many scholars took from that and the fact that alcohol smells bad, you know, and they said, well, alcohol is an impure substance, okay? And so that's actually the majority position of all four schools of thought throughout Islam. That was the position. Other scholars within those schools of thought and scholars on their own that were not from the school of thought, they challenged that notion through a couple of points. The first point that they made was, we know that when the ignorant Bedouin man came into the mosque, he's never been into a mosque, he doesn't know what a mosque is, he just sees that there are corners and he is going to go over there and urinate, right? And so the Prophet ﷺ's companions wanted to attack him. This is our mosque, how dare you? And the Prophet ﷺ let this man be, okay? After he's done, do what? Go pour water on it. Which means what? We know that this is a najasa, this is impure. And so pour the water on it so that it will purify it off with the earth, right? That's what he said. Now, last night we talked about how the companions reacted when the ayah was revealed, finally completely prohibiting alcohol. They went out and they poured alcohol outside of their homes, in the areas, in the streets and in the valleys and so forth. there was no command or no suggestion of any command that we need to do what? Pour water over that. Because people are going to go walk through there and they're going to take that with them, and maybe they bring it into their house, maybe they pray on it, whatever it may be. Some scholars responded to that and they said, yeah, but the Prophet ﷺ did say that when somebody is walking on the earth, whatever impurity will come, walking on the earth will purify your sandals and your shoes and so forth. Which is why all the companions always prayed in their shoes. Let's make that crystal clear for you. It is well known in Bukhari and Muslim and various hadiths that there was no carpet in the time of the Prophet ﷺ, it was dirt. And they used to always come in there in shoes and sandals, and they prayed in their shoes and sandals. You know? And that's the Prophet ﷺ explaining to them, except for the one time, which is mentioned in Bukhari, one time in the whole seerah, where the Prophet ﷺ, in the middle of salah, he took his shoes off. And then after the salah, he asked them, because he turned around after they made salam, and he says, everybody has their shoes off. He said, why did you take off your shoes? And they said, we saw you, Rasulullah, you took your shoes off, and we're taking our shoes off like you. He said, no, Angel Gabriel came to me and told me that there was some najasa stuck on my shoe. You see? And so that is where the Prophet ﷺ explained that to them. So then the other group says, okay, well, your other evidence that you're trying to use, okay, is this ayah in the Quran in Surah Al-Ma'idah that is saying that alcohol, gambling, idols, and divining arrows. Now, there is a consensus. Nobody said that if somebody's taking dice or cards that people are actively gambling with and put them away, or if they touched a statue or an idol when they used to throw them off and destroy them in Fath of Mecca, in the conquest of Mecca, that they were throwing these idols and destroying them one by one. There was nobody saying, oh, this is najasa. Because the ayah is equating the filthiness and the impurity of idols, alcohol, gambling, and divining arrows. So it's using one word to refer to all four of these things as rijis, which means najis. It's the same word actually. It's just ra instead of na. And so they said, no, this is spiritual. Because the Quran says, إِنَّمَا الْمُشْرِكُونَ najis. The polytheists are filthy. Well, for sure, there will be polytheists who will have obsessive compulsive disorder and they will wash many times a day and they'll be cleaner than many Muslims. But their impurity is in their heart, in their mind. The fact that they are willing to worship a statue is an impurity of human form, you see? So they brought this issue. So now from this issue, there are many scholars, now I will say the majority of scholars have switched on this. And they've said, no, we don't see that the proof is conclusive. So when I was sitting with my sheikh, I brought these points, and he said, those are good points, but we made a principle. كُلُّ سَائِلٍ حَرَامٍ فَهُوَ نَجِسٍ. So what happened is, scholars were trying to become as sophisticated as well. We have the most broad, rich legal tradition known to humanity. Let me say that again. Our legal tradition is the most rich and broad and vast and capable system in the world, by far. The American legal system, whatever European legal systems they have, are still trying to make sense out of themselves. And so one of those things is they put legal principles looking at different things. So the scholars said, well, anything that is liquid and you're not allowed to consume it, then we say that that's najis, like blood, like alcohol, and like urine and things like that, right? So they made that principle, and so the sheikh said, we don't want to break the principle because now modern scholars are bringing this. But sheikh, the proof is there that it's not conclusive, and here's the problem. So many things. You have to know, how many of you heard people saying, when COVID happened, you can't use the sanitizer? Because technically, all sanitizers are filled with najis if you go by the majority position. Ethyl alcohol is alcohol. If you drank, even though you would throw up, because it's not made with anything, that would make you drunk if you drank a sanitizer. Just the small bottle. That's alcohol. You see what I'm saying? And so many people were saying this. And all the scholars got together and said, no, guys. Some said necessity, but some said no, this is not a convincing point. So now we get to the issue of alcohol. The issue of alcohol is now you have so many different things that you did not realize. Are you aware that any really good fruity, sweet, tangy fruit has some alcohol in it? Yes, every single fruit that has begun to ferment, meaning it got really sweet, and then after really sweet, it starts to become sour. That's that tang. That's that, particularly when you're talking about like some oranges and things like that, that's that tangy flavor. It's a little bit of alcohol in there. Could you get intoxicated? No. Unless you could taste the really sour, overwhelming. Now, if you ate a few of those, which by the way, it happened to me. I was in Kuwait, and I went to the marketplace, and they have, the big date, every date you could imagine piled up. And I found that my favorite date is the birhi date, right? And so I piled up the birhi dates on there, and they were just like almost dripping. So I got to the house, and I put it into the, I didn't put it in the refrigerator. I put it in the pantry. And so come home the next day, and I take one, and I ate it. Man, Allahu Akbar. Yeah. And then I told the sheikh, and the sheikh said, yeah, some of our shabab, Allahu Akbar, may Allah guide them. They're doing this now. And I said, subhanallah. So now you have so many different things, so many different foods. Vanilla extract, for example. If you want to make vanilla, you take it out from the liquor. You crush up the vanilla beans, and then you put it in alcohol, and that pulls that vanilla flavor into the alcohol. Then they take out the alcohol, and then whatever's left is the vanilla. So there is alcohol in there. Could it intoxicate you? I mean, if you tried to drink vanilla extract, a lot of it, which you would throw up very quickly, just because it's vanilla extract. You would. But vanilla extract is put into something else. Now that thing, that cake, that cookie, that ice cream, that whatever it is, if you ate 20 donuts, which is foolish anyways, because all that sugar will mess your whole body's hormonal system up, you would never get intoxicated. So what they said is, the issue, if we're convinced now that it's not najasa, okay? So it's not najasa, okay? So now the issue is, does it intoxicate? Why? Because the Prophet ﷺ said, مَا أَسْكَرَ كَثِيرُهُ فَقَلِيلُهُ حَرَامٌ. Whatever will intoxicate you in large amounts, then a small amount of it is haram. Some Muslims do not understand this principle. They're thinking that if any trace of alcohol is in anything, then traces of alcohol, if you pound them up on, no, the question is that thing, not the fact that alcohol is in it, because there's many things that have alcohol in it. And by the way, what they used to do, when they had juice, after alcohol was prohibited, they called them nabith. And the Hanafi school of thought is agreed upon that there's nothing wrong with nabith. Imam Shafi'i came later and he said, it's doubtful. Even though Abu Hanifa was already saying, what they used to do is, when that juice would get diluted, they didn't want to waste their Arab in the desert. You don't have ability. So they would dilute it with water, and they would make mini from 1 cup of juice that started to get fermented, then they would make that out of 10. You see what I'm saying? And this is something that was well known, and this is where the Shia try to say Omar was still drinking. They're lying, because this is what he was drinking. And everybody knew that that is not intoxicatable, right? And that's another evidence people bring, that alcohol is not an impure substance. Otherwise, why would he be drinking something with traces of it? Well, they said, well, there's istihlak, that a small amount of najasa does not affect the large quantity of things that it's in, right? So on this issue, say for example, you're buying a dish that is frozen or something, and it says under 2% white wine in there. You could eat 5 of those and be just throwing up from no room in your stomach, and you will never get intoxicated from that. You see what I'm saying? Now, there are some foods that they serve, usually, like, if it's like they have something called rum cake. They have it. You can go to Amelia's and they will have it there. And that rum cake, when you taste it, they put a whole lot of sugar in there, but there is rum in there, right? And so this is haram, for sure. Because there's a percentage of it that if you ate 3 rum cakes, you will start to feel something. You will. And similarly, they have, like, for example, kombucha. There's kombucha that has alcohol. Well, usually they say you need an ID to buy this one. And the one that does not have a lot of alcohol, it's a very small, minute amount left in it, along with all that acidic stuff, then they say you do not need an ID. That's usually your defining point about, is it allowed to drink or not? Not because there's trace amounts. You will see that they'll write on the kombucha, because of the common Muslim who does not understand the principle. This common Muslim thinks they have complained in the millions to these, I've heard that you're putting alcohol, my religion says alcohol is evil. They don't understand the fact that if it's non-intoxicatable, if you drink 3 kombuchas in a row, you would throw up from all that acidity, because there's lots of acidity and lots of probiotics in there, right? Usually a person on, someone who drinks them may 1 a day. You cannot drink 2, 3 in a day. It's just too much for your stomach. You can't have that, you see? So I remember Sheikh Salman al-Auda, he made a fatwa back in the early 2000s because the people in Saudi Arabia, were freaking out that they have non-alcoholic beer. Because no non-alcoholic beer is 0.0, no. There's going to be 0.0 something, 1, 2, 3, it's going to be in there. Because you can't completely get all the alcohol out. So the Sheikh said, okay. And he knew that there was a chemistry student that his family knows in Indiana University. And he said, I want you to tell me from science, how many of these non-alcoholic beers would it take to intoxicate someone? And he came back and he said, well, it would take 22 beers within 1 hour to begin to change the mind of someone. But no human being could consume more than 10 in 1 hour without throwing up or having a combustion inside of their stomach. So it's impossible to feel any change in your body from this, right? And so this is where they're using that principle. So this thing where now they do have, for example, Italian foods. They have the one where it's called marsala. They cook it and then they put 1 scoop of white wine on top of it. And then they let that settle and they give it to you. If you ate 2 whole plates of that, you might. So haram. You see what I'm saying? But many of them, like for example, a lot of the Chinese food, they're just putting the alcohol to get the flavors together, and it's burning up on the wok. Like they're putting it on there and it's burning with the flavors, and they're just putting it on there to pull flavors out. You would never get intoxicated from that, right? So beer battered shrimp, those things, all of those things are not a problem. So the issue is, could it intoxicate, right? And so that's how we draw the line for those of us that are saying that it is not najasa. If we're agreeing, which by the way, so many things are having alcohol in them, and you're putting them on your body, like deodorants and this and that. So, if you're saying it's najasa, then you need to stay away from all of it. But your life is going to be very difficult, okay? Okay, as we said, مَا جَعَلَ عَلَيْكُمْ فِي الدِّينِ مِنْ حَرَجٍ. Okay? But if you're saying that it's not najasa, you can't be saying I'm being safe when there's nothing to get you intoxicated. You're not being safe. You're being safe when you're doubtful. Could it intoxicate me or not? Then you be safe and you stay away from it, right? Which is what I was saying about those other things. So this is, I think, a principled way of looking at this, and it will help us to deal with our affairs here in America without being seen to be a little bit sometimes irrationally overzealous on the issue. May Allah guide us and keep us on the straight path.